Hello everyone, Kevin Ikov here from Kevin Ikov Ministries, and today I'm continuing to answer questions that a fellow subscriber sent in, and there's approximately about 25 of them. Today's question is, how should beginners on the spiritual path learn to evaluate and access their spiritual progress? I find that due to the intangible nature of the spiritual path, it can be very difficult for me to determine my progress. What indicators can beginners look for to determine their spiritual progress? Here is where you really want to use and develop a journal and a journal system. Because in journaling, you're writing down what's happening in the day, in that week, in that month, and hopefully you're going back and looking at that journal, because why write down in a journal and then never go back and look at it? What's the point of that? You're really writing down in a journal to go back and revisit and look to see where you were a year ago. Let me see where I was a year ago. Let me see where I was 5 years ago. And highlighting those main pieces in which you saw development occur, because you will see that movement from what you were doing, how you were feeling, what was going on with you, what you were doing spiritually, what you were doing from anything from yogic postures to, who you were helping. Were you out there doing anything with any particular groups? How were you helping those groups? A journal would be invaluable to have that information in there, showing you as you progress through life, what things you did to help that spiritual evolution of your own self. And just by writing down and looking back in the book, you can see the movement of where you've been and where you're going and what's helped and what hasn't helped. And it will be in those kinds of books. The other thing that I've always done to evaluate my own spiritual development have been looking at either books written by certain masters or books like the Bible. Here's one particular one. This is called Kripalu Upanishad, and it was written by Swami Kripalu. And this is basically, and it's a very rare book. You won't find this book anymore. It's no longer in print, and I just happened to find this book, and it's a book written by a master, and he evaluates the different types of samadhi, which is sort of at the end of the path of meditation. Like as you move in and through meditation, there's stages of samadhi that you will pass through. And he basically gives you a guide in here as to which one you might be in based on certain signs and symptoms and things that are happening to you. He basically breaks it down in here as to what area of samadhi you're actually in and working through or towards. And so this is an invaluable one. And it happened to find me. That book happened to find me when I needed that book. What's the sense of somebody studying about samadhi when you're nowhere near those regions of access of the mind or of practice? There's no sense studying those things. You're not going to come into contact with them for years down the road. And so there's no sense studying something that you're not even going to work on developing for years. So start at the beginning. Don't try and start at the end and work your way backward. Start at the beginning. Start with journaling. Start with doing some of that. Start with accessing things that are easy for you. Here's another great thing. This is called Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East, written by Baird T. Spalding. This is a book about the travels, and these men went to India and did this travel and actually have claimed to have met Jesus there. And not all that long ago. And so there's about 5 or 6 of these books in a set. This is volume 1. I believe there's 5 or 6 volumes of this book. An incredible story to help connect you. And make you realize like where you are and what you're a part of. And to read something that's so inspiring to the soul as that Jesus is still here and still walks the earth sometimes. And we don't always see him physically. You know, we reach out, we talk to him, we say prayers, we do all kinds of things, but we really don't have an actual physical connection. These men organized a team to basically walk through India looking for things, and they discovered Jesus along the way. Very powerful book. Here's another one, Vastista's Yoga. Very powerful book. This is basically the person who taught Ram, his teacher, was this book. And so it's a question and kind of answer and inspiration about that whole kind of thing. And so anyway, Vastista's Yoga. The Yoga Pradipika, another great book. Some of these books can point things to you. You're saying, oh, I'm doing that in my practice. I'm experiencing that in my practice. I'm feeling that in my practice. You don't want to evaluate your practice all the time because that will get old. You're going to move through practice for a lifetime. And so it's about looking at your development from where you were to where you are at that point that you're looking. And you don't want to do this every day or every week or every month. You may not want to reevaluate yourself for years. For years. In the beginning, you may want to do it a little more often to see, look, am I moving in the right pathway? It's always nice to have teachers. I will say that right out. It's nice to have a teacher that can help you avoid all those little pitfalls and areas of trouble that you can get in, and can also say, look how much you've actually grown and have moved, because it's hard to see it in your own self. So it has to usually come from another individual that looks at you and sees your spiritual growth and is connected to some of that. But you can do it on your own, and you can do it on your own by just spiritual books too. The Bible can help you. I read the Bible. There's nothing wrong with that. It can help evaluate how far along you have gone or are coming. And a lot of that is in relation to picking a certain kind of thing. Like for me, I like to read Psalms or Revelations. And there's lots of things in there that can be revealing to you on a spiritual way, on a spiritual path. And you work in those particular paragraphs, and you come back to those particular paragraphs or those particular verses, and you work through those verses, because what that verse initially had as something that seemed to explain itself, you come back and you look at it 5 years later and go, oh my God, that's not what it meant to me 5 years ago. Like, it has a whole new meaning now. And I don't know why I didn't see that to begin with. That's like a revelation that you're moving spiritually into a higher consciousness, because all of a sudden things are opening up there that weren't open there before, and you're able to evaluate it and see it more clearly. And then another one, which, many people, I don't know if they realize, but I'm a metaphysical minister. I talk about this being a ministry. It is a ministry. It's a ministry to try to help people on a spiritual path, develop a spiritual path. And so, here's the metaphysical Bible. The thing is, this will help bring up different explanations to you in understanding of what passages of the Bible are. But you have to go looking for these kinds of books. You have to go looking for these kinds of study and these areas of study to enhance yourself. And only you can do it for yourself, because no one else can speak to you but you. You're your best advocate. And there's things out there to look for. You just got to go searching for them. And it may take time. It may take time before you find that particular book or passage or whatever. And you may realize you're further along, or maybe you're not as far along as you thought you were. So you need to learn to become humble. And you need to learn to develop good, strong practices. These are the most important things, is developing strong, consistent, genuine practice every day to yourself, for yourself, to find that divinity that lies within, and not getting bored with it, staying with it all the time. Just like you're brushing your teeth because you don't want your teeth to fall out or to decay. You're doing the same thing internally. You're developing practices so you don't decay, so you don't destroy, so that you build and grow and unfold into a more spiritual growth. And there's lots more ways out there than what I've just showed you, but you have to work on them yourself. And you know, lots of times a teacher won't come along until you're way further along or you're stuck somewhere, and they'll just appear out of nowhere. It may be somebody you wouldn't even expect it to be. It may not be that massive spiritual teacher or that guru. It may be somebody very simple that you meet in life and all of a sudden opens your eyes and you can't believe it. This is how it works. This is how the opening of divinity happens, and it's about opening that consciousness that lies trapped within a box inside of you. And it's just sitting there unopened, and until you get all the keys to open that, and it takes time to work and develop on opening those keys. But you have to stay with it, and the best ways to stay with it is to stay consistent in practice, no matter what. No matter if it's a good day, bad day, indifferent day, hurried day, slow day, it doesn't matter. You don't want to miss, and if you do miss, you want to try to make it up and come back to the practice. And it's never too late to come back and start again and reestablish that practice, even if you got disgusted with it for a while. It can happen. It can happen where you feel that way. But you work on developing and coming back to it and trying to see and set some realistic goals for yourself as to what you want to do. Like maybe you want to learn pranayama or breathing, or maybe you want to learn Pilates for that matter, which doesn't seem to have much to do with spirituality, but if that helps enhance your spiritual development and growth, then there's nothing wrong with doing something like that and picking something like that up. So you work on developing the areas inside yourself through literature, through other things that you find, and don't just take other people's words for it, because there's not very many masters out there. You might think there are, but there's lots of people out there that look for a couple nickels, they'll take a lot of nickels from you. They'll fool you. And you may be further along than them, but they have convinced you that you're not. So you have to discover for yourself those areas that you will find those teachings and that discovery. And a lot of times it's coming back to the same passage for years and years and years. Like I've read the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads. You come back to those and you read the same thing some years later, and all of a sudden the meaning is completely changed, or it has a completely, totally different meaning altogether that you just never even, you would have been like, I don't understand why I didn't get this before. That's a discovery of the movement of your advancement of consciousness when those kinds of things happen. And also occurrences, like for example, you'll say, oh, that was a coincidence. And we often keep saying that, oh, that was a coincidence. Well, in spirituality, all of a sudden, strange coincidences keep happening again and again and again and again, or more often and more often. And so that's another way to track your progress, is the strange little coincidences that you weren't expecting, all of a sudden, they're there and they're happening for you. And so, but the thing is you don't want to constantly be looking for these types of things, or it can diminish the practice too. Doing that consistent, daily, habitual practice is the most important thing. That is the most important thing of them all. And with that being said, I wish you well. Jai Bhagwan, Namaste. May you see the light within yourself and within all others.